Bridging. Generation gaps, socioeconomic gaps, gender gaps, cultural gaps. Bridging gaps that cause confusion, division, and chaos in today's society. And now, let's join our moderator, host, and guest for another provocative episode of Bridging.
We did a few shows talking about mental health. And we wanted to continue that conversation because it is so important, even like now with everything that's been going on the last couple weeks. Like it is, if you don't have mental health challenges on a regular basis, you might actually develop some mental health challenges. And we talked about situational challenges as well. I know this past week, I had to just shut my social media down. And I had to ask my friends and my family, don't send me any posts, any pictures, any news, nothing. And if they sent me something, I just had to block them, like for my own mental health. So how are you guys dealing with everything that's going on? And we're going to talk about, Elizabeth, you had something that happened before this, but I just want to know, like right now, what space are we all in?
It's been a real challenge to keep myself lifted up. You know, scripture says to be transformed by the renewal of your mind. And of course, we know that the mind is our battlefield, that it all starts with what's in our mind.
Right.
So it's been a real struggle. I've had to catch myself because my mother also just passed away. Right. And my husband and I had moved down here from north of Memphis to take care of my mom. So now all of a sudden, where there were three of us, there's only one of us now, and it's me, and I'm taking care of everything. So I've had to really fight that battle because I haven't had a chance to establish friendships yet. Right. And it's just been a struggle from the beginning. I mean, 3 years, starting 3 years ago, and now we have this quarantine and then this horrific national news situation that has recently happened, and all of these other issues that surround all of these factors, where it's just, I have to stay focused. And no, I don't watch the news, and I have minimized my Facebook, my social media.
Yeah, I had to as well, because I'm not an avid news watcher. And I know that may sound crazy because I'm a talk show host, but you can get overwhelmed with everything that everyone is trying to tell you. And so people, I know they were being nice, like, Dr. Mel, you need to see this. This might be something you want to talk about. You need to see this. But even for my own mental health, I had to say, stop. Don't send me anything else. And I just had to shut it down. And Laura Beth and I spoke, probably the same day I was shutting things down. And I was just so tearful. And then she and I shared some things. So Laura Beth, we talked about, like, with the whole world, I'm going to say the world is on fire. With the whole world being on fire, that sparked a conversation between me and Laura Beth, because she is in a mixed marriage. And she has multiracial children. So even with the racism and the talk of racism and trying to heal from racism, and how about we're recognizing that there's been racism. I said, Laura, we're just recognizing that. I'm just saying, Laura Beth, how are you dealing with all of this? Because I'm going to say you're on both sides.
Yeah.
You're living both worlds right now.
Yes. I was shutting down. I think the last, maybe yesterday and Saturday, we're doing projects outside. So I've been completely away from social media. I'm like, I don't want to have anything to do with TV. I don't want to have anything to do with social media. I just want to focus on my family. So we've been doing stuff outside. But while I was focusing on social media and what was going on around the world, I was crying every single day. I'm like, I don't want you to go to work. I'm scared you're not going to come home. I don't want you to go to the store. I'm having breakdowns. You can't leave the house. And he's like, we can't live this way because I've got to go to work. I pay the bills, because right now I'm not making anything. and he pays everything. So he's like, I can't not go to work. So you're just going to have to trust me and love me that I'm going to be vigilant and do what I need to do and come home.
So for those who don't know, Laura Beth, what nationality is your husband? Because they're probably like, why does she?
I'm sorry.
Right.
He is African American.
He's African American. So is this the first time that you had to deal with feeling afraid for him?
No.
So you have felt this before, but not at this level.
No, never at this level, but yes, definitely before. There was a time I'm not going to say we were parking when we were dating, but we were at a park. We wasn't doing anything. We were just talking. And this cop pulls up and he pulls me out of the car. It's my car. I was behind the wheel. I was in the driver's seat. And he pulls me out of the car and pulls me back to his car. It was 2 white cops. And he starts questioning me. Is he doing anything wrong? Did he kidnap you? Why are y'all here? I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And they would not let him out of the car. They did not ask for any ID. They didn't ask any questions. They just took us apart and started questioning us. And I'm like, oh my gosh, they're just going to arrest him because he was with me.
Wow. So that was your first time.
Yes. When
that happened, did you say, this is a racist incident right here? Or were you just afraid?
I was asked the cop, I said, is it because he's black? I mean, I really want to know. And the cop said, no, it just looks suspicious. But
right. So with that event in the back of your mind, and probably some other things that have happened, because we've talked, the recent events, how has that helped you either rationalize some things, or how are you feeling with anxiety, depression? What's going on?
The depression's at bay right now because the anxiety has taken over.
Wow.
The anxiety has taken over everything. I don't even know how to describe it. I was raised in a racist home, so
okay.
I wasn't supposed to love him. I wasn't supposed to even be friends with him. So it's kind of, well, wait a second, hold on. This is how I was raised, but I can't comprehend it. Mm-hmm. I do not have the mentality to put together how you cannot love somebody because of the color of their skin. And I'll be honest, my first husband was Hispanic. And my parents were just as angry with me marrying him they didn't do any shutting out completely, but they were not happy about it.
Wow. We will get back to some of that in a second. I want to ask Sandra, can you address what Laura Beth said? She said the depression is at bay, but the anxiety has taken over. Can you help us understand the difference between anxiety and depression? Because you work with people who have mental disabilities, right? So
yes,
help us understand that.
Even in my own family, and a lot of times depression can be situational depression, and then that's a more mild, and it feels, if you've not experienced it before, it feels very difficult, and then it can go on to like a clinical type depression, and then there'll be depression that maybe is not treatable with just taking a pill and going on. You have to work at it. And so there's a lot of modalities out there that will help with that. But what she's probably saying is, my mind was focused on being so sad, and I'm thinking these sad thoughts. And then when that anxiety comes in, she's like revved up. Those thoughts are coming all the time. And so she's still on an emotional level, but it's just like you've got a hip hurt. And you burn your finger on the stove, and boy, that burnt finger outweighs the pain in the hip. The pain in the hip's still there, but you don't notice it as much burnt finger because it's immediate and acute. And that's basically what's happened. Her depression's still there. It is the acuteness of the anxiety, and it's going to take my life away, to take my finances away, to take my loved one away.
Right.
And that's what she's dealing with right now.
Wow. Wow. What are some things that we can do? Because I don't see this subsiding anytime soon. I
Well,
don't.
I think the best things that I've heard so far is that we're cutting down on social media.
Yeah.
We're limiting our news input because you can turn to 3 different stations, get 3 different kinds of stories
Mhm.
and 3 different answers. And it's very confusing. And if you're a person that picks up and identifies with anxiety provoking things, you'll just pull into that and your emotions will be, and you won't know what to do. And then, it tears up your sleep and it affects your irritability level with your family and your children, even yourself. And so, putting boundaries
Yes.
on things that you let your family, your children, yourself listen to.
Yeah.
You might have to turn on the news for the weather, see what's going on, something of that nature, but limit what you, the only people in this world of self-quarantine now, the person that has to be good to yourself is yourself,
Right.
And you have to realize that you're not alone. There's somebody in every household out there that's going through some trying event, whether it's just the fact that I'm social distance and I don't have my friends I hang out with or my loved ones. And then a very important, keeping a social group of people in your contact list that you feel like you can call and say, I'm not feeling good. And more than just calling, it's sometimes being that person that's hard for them to make that phone and say hurt them.
Yeah.
That's a big deal. But if she can just keep that ring of friends, and a lot of times we're losing a lot of people in our lives through the virus and through even some of the things with the suicide and all the things that are going on and how people are being affected. And some people shut down emotionally during this time, and we're no longer a support.
Right.
Basically, we have to keep building our support. If we lose support, we keep working. Like, this is a new avenue. I've just met Laura, and so now we have a connection. We can talk. That's a new open door for you. And then Dr. Mills here, and now we've got Elizabeth on the line. And so we're all connections. Some days I may be up and Laura may be down, or vice versa. But every contact, there's groups, there's social media groups for support. There's a lot of peer groups for people that have mental health are doing online support groups. And you just need to call your state, local mental health, like Tennessee Department of Mental Health, where I'm from. Call them and say, what's going on? What can I connect to?
Okay.
Connect. Maybe you're just a person that listens, but it helps.
Okay. Thank you so much. Okay, so Elizabeth, you mentioned that you moved where you are now for the purpose of taking care of your mom, to be a caregiver, and it was you and your husband. Okay, walk us through that, because I heard you say now it's just me, and I have not had a chance to connect to friends and get a support. Tell us about that.
Well, it was about 3 years ago that my husband and I sold most everything we had and moved from north of Memphis. We lived in a little town called Munford, close to where Laura Beth lives now. And we sold most everything we had and moved down here and actually lived in a camper while we were building our house. And my mother had given us a couple acres, 2.5 acres of her property, and we were building a house, and my husband was actually the contractor on the house. And she had indicated, there had been some issues that told me that she needed someone to be an advocate for her. Okay. So we knew without doubt that we had to move down immediately and be her advocate. So my husband was the primary worker. He was the primary breadwinner. And I was in the process of building my editing business, but we both agreed that my job primarily was to be her caregiver. Okay. And I had been driving 2.5 days a week down from Munford to care for her, to take her to the doctor. So with that being the case, fast forward, almost less than a year after we had been here, he ended up taking his own life, which came totally out of nowhere. very few signals, if any. And then, of course, now, less than a year after that, I've lost her. So that's how it has become just me.
Wow. Wow. So your husband committed suicide and you said there were no signals.
Yes.
Was it medically related? I mean, what happened? What happened?
Well, in May of the first year we were here, this was, I guess, a year and a half ago, in the spring, we obviously had to change doctors since we had moved from the Memphis area to the Tupelo area. And in the process of changing doctors, his new doctor didn't feel like his blood pressure medicine was doing its job. Even though it wasn't elevated, it was just borderline hypertension. He prescribed him a new blood pressure medication.
Okay.
And this particular medication was a black box medication, but we did not know that.
What does that
And
mean?
it didn't have black box identity on some medication means that it could possibly cause suicide or lead to suicidal thoughts. Well, that wasn't indicated on the information we had. And during the next few months, like within 8 weeks, he was having physical side effects, but nothing mental.
Okay.
Of course, I could tell that physically he was being worn down, but it had not affected his mental faculties in any way. But then, less than 8 weeks later, another medication was brought in that caused, that combination caused that, something to just click in his brain.
Wow.
And I mean, I can pinpoint it to that day, and it was the changes were very subtle. It happened over a period of about 6 weeks. And we had so much else going on. I was caregiving for my mom. My aunt had just passed away. I was helping her daughters caregive for her. And then we were building our home. And I knew something was wrong, but I didn't know what. And I had called every prayer warrior I knew. And I had tried to reach out for him, but he wasn't letting me in.
The medication had changed his behavior and his mind and even his physicalness. Wow.
Right. It was a chemical reaction. And as I mentioned, I could just tell, I could pinpoint it to that specific day that second medication was brought in.
Wow.
And it was the changes were very subtle, but over the next few weeks, I kept seeing more and more. And tried to say something, but again, he wasn't really letting me in.
Right. It's hard to have a conversation with someone that doesn't feel like anything is wrong. Right? Is that right, Sandra?
Right.
Yeah.
A lot of men deal with depression so much differently than women do. As far as they contain their thoughts, but generally a lot of times that's the way a man will respond emotionally on a regular basis. He may have been a person that handled everything and didn't let you in to, he was the caregiver. He took care of you emotionally and didn't relay his problems. And that's not uncommon. And so a lot of times we say, if you see changes that are, really starting to make differences, and then there's a checklist of things that they're showing signs of, if they're holding 5 or more of these signs over a 2-week period, then you call your doctor. Even if they won't go to the doctor, you call the doctor. I encourage people to always check with your family physician, but you were in a situation, you had to change doctors. They didn't know you. I mean, you were in a very vicarious situation with a new doctor.
And then, you know what? I hear this all the time, and I know a lot of our other, people hear it, the viewers hear it. There's a list, there's a checklist. Make sure what? I don't have a list. I don't have a list right now that says if this and this happens, even the commercials that we hear and then it says the small, that small print at the bottom, or that fast language that they said might commit suicide. We don't listen to that. I mean, we hear it, but who's walking around with these 1,000,000,011 checklists that we're, so I'm not trying to be facetious, but we just don't.
I do.
Well, Sandra, that's your job, right? But I'm just saying that I don't want anyone to feel bad, because we don't know. We hear it.
Right.
If your loved one is going through this, this, and this, and this, I would not know. I would not know to pick up a depression checklist. I wouldn't know to pick up a suicidal checklist. I wouldn't know to pick up an anxiety checklist unless someone suggested it, almost, But that's why you have to have a support system as well.
Right.
And I was at the same place myself when I began this journey of social work and working with people. I had a family member that came ill and we didn't know what to do.
Mm-hmm.
And then we started little by little. Wonderfully, I was able to combine myself with NAMI, National Alliance on Mental Illness, which helps family members.
Mm-hmm.
And I started learning all these little tricks and things. But the biggest key is when you start seeing something different, don't negate it because you're saying, well, I'm doing this and I'm doing that. And this just happened, especially when you're having loss.
Right.
The grief of a loss of another person in your life or relationships. I mean, Elizabeth, you were going through so many things, a change of place, your mother's sick, your husband's changing, he's had new doctors, new medicine. You were hitting all the major issues at one time. And so when there's changes, really think about those changes and what is happening. And if they won't go to a doctor, call your doctor.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you need to call a doctor in another city that you've had and you were friends with and knew you, call them and say, this is what I'm seeing. What do I need to do? You seek that professional person that you have a contact with, because if nothing's wrong, then that's great. But if there is something wrong, the earlier you get into it, the better.
And I think that's why it's so important to also have that support system that we keep talking about, because sometimes we can be too close to the situation and not see it. Like, I'm so tired, I don't see all of these other things that could possibly be going on. But someone else could say, Melinda, Broderick is a little strange today. Why did he say that? And then it'll bring it to our attention. It'll bring it to our attention. We have a few minutes left. I just want to ask each of you to give us some final words on let's make a pact. What are we going to do to stay mentally healthy? What are we going to do to stay mentally healthy? Elizabeth, you've just gone through another great loss. My condolences to you. But what are you going to do for you? What are you going to do for you?
Well, I'm in this period where I no longer have to care for other people.
Mm-hmm.
So I am learning who Elizabeth is once again, because in the past, she has been a caregiver to so many. I was caregiver to Philip's dad before we moved down here, and he passed away shortly before that. So I'm learning who Elizabeth really is, and I'm taking care of Elizabeth and the things that Elizabeth needs to take care of.
Yes.
And as I mentioned earlier, I'm trying to focus on my thoughts, because I know that if my thoughts become negative, then it takes me down a downward spiral where I don't want to go. So I'm doing everything I can to stay focused on scripture and on positive thoughts. And as Sandra mentioned, when I need to be lifted up, I will reach out to someone.
Good. That's what I wanted to hear. That you are going to make someone else a part of your support system, because we can't do it alone.
Absolutely.
We can't do it alone.
No.
Hey, Sandra, what are you doing as you care for people and you care for yourself? What are you doing to bring positivity back to you?
Well, what I have joined, because of my age, I've joined a senior center, and that senior center is keeping me Zooming all the time with exercise and art classes and things that keep me moving forward. And I think I would have probably been lost in a lot of ways without this, because I have something I have to get up and do,
Mm-hmm.
things that entertain me and are enjoyable. And then the exercise is not something I favor wanting to do, but it's something that really does help my mental stability.
Yes.
And I just do it online and do it in my living room, and it really does help. And I tell myself, it helps.
It does.
And so
It does.
that's what I'm doing.
Even if it's on Zoom like this is a great conversation we're having right now. You
Yes.
know, like even on
It
Zoom,
is.
I never
Mhm.
thought that just connecting with someone on the internet could be exciting, but it is. You're doing senior citizen classes, you're working out, we're having conversations. So yes, things like this is also a wonderful avenue. Okay, Laura Beth, what are you going to do for you?
Well, right now I'm focusing on my family because I've been so trapped in myself
Mm-hmm.
that I haven't paid them as much attention as they need. And by taking care of them, it's also taking care of me, because I get to see them smile and laugh and, Mama, I love you. Mama, I need, I'm so glad to see you smile. I'm so glad that you're here. I'm so glad that you're doing this for us. So, I mean, it means a lot to them, which in turn means a lot to me, because I had shut down. I had got to the point where I was isolated in my room. Leave me alone. Don't come to my room. I just need time.
Yeah. It got to that point for me too. So I asked you guys what you're going to do for you. The thing I'm going to do for me is I am going to finish writing my book. I'm working on another book. I know. I'm working on another book. I just released one, a month ago, maybe?
Yeah, about a
It's
month.
been about a month ago. Well, this next one is called Wives in Waiting. So I'm going to finish writing that and release it. And that's what I'm doing for me, because I love writing. So that's it. All right, you guys, thank you for being here today. Thank you for continuing the conversation about mental health. As we, navigate what's going on in the world, we have to take some time for ourselves. We have to take time to just shut it off. Don't feel guilty about shutting it off. Just know that you have to do what's best for you and your family.